What's going on, nerds? Welcome back to Comic Book Nerd Nation, episode 158. I'm Fox2. The whole damn crew basically left us today, Topher. It's just me and you.
Yeah, we need him anyway.
Yeah, fuck them. So they basically let us know, like, middle of the night last night. Like, oh, by the way, in 7 hours when we're going to be recording, I'm not going to be there.
Well, I mean, middle of the night for some. I was
What?
awake, and
2 a.m. is not middle of the night?
it was like midnight.
Nah, it was definitely after 1.
Um,
For sure.
was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But anyway,
whenever it was, I was still awake. I was like, oh, okay.
fair enough. I was not. I was in bed. Um, but I wake up early every morning, too. I was up at 5 o'clock this morning, so you'll have that.
Oh yeah, 1:43 a.m. was
Yeah.
when Pirate said he couldn't go.
Remembered that he had to go to the BMV.
Right. Well, Brian told us yesterday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, I remembered him saying something about it. That he wasn't going to be able to make it, but that's all right. That's all right. No big deal. It is what it is. They'll be back for the next recording. We're not going anywhere. So there's not a ton of stuff to discuss this week, but we'll see what we can do. We'll make the best out of what we've got. I'm going to do my best on the camera. It's always really hard to work the camera when there's only 2 people, because it's more like a one-on-one conversation. So
Yeah.
like I'm talking and I'm watching your face because it's like I'm talking to you. Whereas when we have a group of people, you always want to look at who's talking. I don't know. It's really strange. I always have a hard time with it when it's just 2 people. But
Seems like it should be easier because you only
you
have
would
one other target.
you would think so. But what I end up doing is I end up leaving the camera on the other person even when I'm talking.
Right.
And so it's just like it's just like video of you sitting there being completely silent, listening to me ramble on about something. It's really strange.
Mm. Go on.
Yeah, do tell. Do tell.
Mm.
Let's talk for a minute about Aquaman. This is probably my least favorite topic that we've got to discuss today. Apparently, Warner Brothers has pushed out the release date for the Aquaman movie by 3 months, so it's going to come out on October 5th, 2018. I don't know why comic book news websites are making such a big deal about stuff like this, because personally, I don't understand why they're even releasing movie release schedules that far out. I would almost rather not know what's coming up 2 years down the road and have it add to the excitement when you hear, like, oh shit, did you hear what's coming out in 6 months? They're doing Aquaman, or they're doing, whatever. I think that they're kind of stealing a little bit of their thunder away by releasing these massive like here's one that just released yesterday night. Full movie release schedule. I'll just quickly read through this. I'm not going to give you the dates, but in 2017 you've got Logan, Ghost in the Shell, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Wonder Woman, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, Spider-Man: Homecoming, an untitled Fox film, The Inhumans, Thor: Ragnarok, and Justice League. And then 2018, you have Black Panther, another untitled Marvel film, The Flash, Avengers: Infinity War, another untitled Fox Marvel film. That doesn't. I think. I think.
Deadpool.
Yeah, probably. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Attila: Battle Angel, Aquaman, another untitled Fox Marvel film. Spider-Man, the animated one. Then in 2019, you've got 5 more. 2020, they've got 6 more. And then there's like 5 that are announced but not yet scheduled. It's like, I don't understand why I'm not going to get excited about a movie that's coming out 4 years from now.
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily for specifically for fan excitement. I mean, obviously they I'm sure the studio wants to gauge like interest in the film, and kind of get people
Talking about it.
get people talking about it ahead of time. But I don't think that that's the sole purpose. I mean, movie studios have like ridiculously long schedules and planning that has to go into it. You've got pre-production, filming, post-production, all this, the marketing stuff. And I mean, if you look at it from the studio's perspective, in terms of like, being a project manager, trying to schedule how you're going to make this thing and get it done, like that requires a lot of scheduling. And, at least inside the industry, they have to have those schedules and those forecasts, because they kind of have to plan where the studio's time is going over the next several years. It's kind of like a product roadmap for the studio of sorts. Like if you think of it from a business perspective, and also with the actors, they have that schedule. The fact that the internet is so prevalent today, and like everything is just public, and
I think that's what it is more than anything.
Those schedules come out. Like I would almost guarantee that they've always had those long-term schedules like that before. Like it just wasn't necessarily newsworthy before, because you didn't have the access to it that you do nowadays. Because I mean, when you look at it from the actor's standpoint, if you're trying to hire somebody for that movie, they do the casting long before the filming normally begins. But actors have schedules. They have to decide when they take on a project, is this going to fit into my schedule? Like I'm slated to film this movie this date, blah blah blah.
Right.
So I mean, they kind of have to have the production timeline of these movies established, sometimes a couple years in advance.
I think that you're right, that it has a lot to do with the internet just making everything more prevalent and readily available. Because I look back and I think back, and one of the movies that stands out to me is the Lord of the Rings movies. When that first came out, we found out about it a good deal in advance. I want to say like maybe 2 years before the movie was due to release, that was coming out. And it was like a big deal. It was like, wow, that's a really long time out. That's going to be a long wait for that movie. And now here we are finding out about movies that are, already doing castings for films in 2020.
4 years away.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, this, and like you said,
and we don't even think it's that long anymore.
Right. And that may have already been a thing. Like you said, it may have already been happening in the background, but we just didn't know. And I think ignorance is bliss to some degree. It's kind of nice to not know what's that far down the road, because in some cases you can kind of start conjecturing and figuring out and speculating about what direction the franchise might be headed or could be headed. And you can kind of wear yourself out on it before you even get to see the movie.
I think it also depends a little bit on the movie franchise. I mean, there's a couple contributing factors here. There have been a lot more franchises lately, like sequels and things where it's like, oh, this is the first movie of something, like
oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're used to seeing movies in a series now. And back in the day, movies were a lot more one-shot kind of things, And so...
yeah, it was very rare to see multiples.
Yeah, you didn't really have as many franchises. I mean, you had like, think of like the Superman movies from the 70s and 80s and stuff. It's like you had that, but
the only other ones I can think of are like horror movies.
You didn't really know, like Jaws or something, but you didn't really know when they were going to make the next one. It's like, they're making another Jaws movie, they're making another Superman movie. Like nowadays, though, Marvel Studios is a thing that exists, and they said that all their movies are in a shared universe. So whenever you have one, the first question when you leave the theater is,
What's
when's the
next?
next one?
Yeah.
What's the next one? And so people are asking those questions, and I don't think they used to ask them before. Like it's a matter of expecting the movies now. So we've got we've got an X-Men franchise. We know to ask, hey, when's the next X-Men movie
Do you
coming
think
out?
that
We've
that's
got
part? Do you think that that's partially like in part due to like the change in the culture, especially in this country in America, of expectance of instant gratification? With the internet and cell phones and everything is right now. I have to have an answer now. I can't wait to go to the library and read a book and find out the answer. I want to Google it on my phone right now.
Yeah, I'd say for sure that plays into it. I mean, you can Google anything these days, and and when it comes to news, the news cycle has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter, and nobody's looking for things, reports that take, weeks or a month to put together. People are looking for a soundbite right now. Like what's the status? It's the always connected status thing now. So you no longer read a newspaper and say, oh, okay, there's going to be a story next week, where I'll get the lowdown on whatever's going on entertainment wise. Like there's not these discrete points of waiting for information. When you had to wait for a newspaper, when you had to wait for 60 Minutes to come on, like when you had to wait for a news show, like you got into this habit of knowing that you're not going to know everything right now. Like they'll show it when they have it, kind of thing. But the internet is always on; it's always connected, and so you're no longer waiting for a story. You're now constantly monitoring the status of things.
Yes.
And so I feel like that definitely plays a part in it, because now it's not just like, oh, hey, tell me when your movie's ready. It's like, well, I need to. The conversation's gone the other way. Instead of the news source initiating it and delivering it to the consumer when it's ready,
It's the consumer pushing
consumer
the need.
it's the consumer going out to get it, and it always has to be there, up to date when they do. And so I think that's definitely a change in culture that we've had since the internet and high speed and broadband
Yeah.
and constant connection. You don't even dial into the internet anymore. It's just always there. So everybody is constantly expected to have their latest status available for whenever the masses come to check in on it.
The next bit of news coming from the Marvel front, Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be getting a video game, a multi-platform video game in 2017. I'm not sure if you heard about this, but it's going to be an interactive episodic game
It's going to be
series.
a Telltale.
It's a
I think
Telltale
it's a Telltale game.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a Telltale game with 5 episodes. Be available on consoles, PC, and mobile devices. Mildly excited. I mean, the Walking Dead one was pretty fun. But part of what made that fun, I think, is that it was kind of the first of its kind. So I don't know how excited about this I would be.
I mean, there's been Telltale's had several, and they've all been really good. I mean, I think Walking Dead was the first one that got in on an existing franchise, but they had their own game. The first one they did, I believe, was called The Wolf Among Us. I think that was their first. I could be wrong on that, but it was a great game. It got rave reviews. And since then they've done a couple, but then they've also done several that are licensed.
They've done
There's
a
a Game of
ton
Thrones
of games.
one.
Holy shit!
And recently they've done a Batman one that I've heard is really good. But
They
I
did.
haven't gotten a chance to,
They go all
play
the way
it.
back to 2005. First game being Telltale Texas Hold'em.
I mean, I'm sure they've done a little, like several little games, but like their episodic, like
The-
cell shaded animated ones, I think have been a more somewhat more recent venture. I think
The
The Wolf
next
Among Us
one
was
was called
the first big
Bone
one in that
Out from
genre.
Boneville.
Out from Boneville?
Bone Out from Boneville. The first episodic one
like
that
a
they had
porn game?
with multiple episodes was actually CSI: 3 Dimensions of Murder in 2006. So yeah, they've done quite a few. They did several CSIs. They did Wallace and Gromit's Grand Adventures. They've done Sam and Max Beyond Time and Space, Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, Law and Order, The Walking Dead game, Wolf Among Us, like you mentioned, Tales from the Borderlands, Game of Thrones, Minecraft Story Mode, Batman, another Walking Dead. Good Lord. Wow, they've done quite a bit. I'm not that excited about it. I doubt highly that I will actually get this game. I feel like if this was something that I was really going to get, I would have known about the Batman one and would have gotten that first, probably. Seeing as that's been out since August, apparently. But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. I don't know. Is this something you think you'll pick this up, or?
I had Tales from the Borderlands. I don't know. It sounds interesting. I guess it kind of depends on. I'd be interested to see whether. Do we know if they're going with comic versions or movie versions?
I would assume the movie versions.
Probably.
I would assume.
Yeah, I don't know. If
Doesn't
they
really
do,
say.
it looks like they've got the movie the movie's logo.
Yeah.
So
I'm assuming. I'm
probably.
assuming it's going to be the.
Yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting because I guess the question then is, does it become movie canon? The stuff in the game, is it considered in universe for the? Well, no. I mean, my question is, will some of it come into play in the movies? Like,
I would doubt it.
Probably not, but I mean, if they tied it in some way, and they said that they may reference events of the game in the next movie, then I mean, that would probably increase my my desire to try it out.
Yes, I agree. That would probably entice me a little bit more, but if that became a trend to where you had to buy every fucking video game that was out to get all of the story, I would
probably. I'm sure they wouldn't do it in a way where you have to have it, but it would be more like a nod to the people who played it.
Okay.
I mean, in the same way that, like, a couple times, even the Marvel movies have mentioned, like something like a little thing from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of thing. Like, you don't have to watch the TV show, but if you do, like, you'll be like, oh, I know that guy. I remember that reference. I saw that.
So coming up here in a couple days as we're recording this, and a couple days ago as this is released, Disney World's Epcot spaceship Earth will be transformed into the Death Star on December 5th for a Rogue One promo event. I didn't see anything about how long they were going to plan on leaving it as the Death Star. I don't know if this is just a one-day thing. It seems like a shitload of work for just one day. But it's Disney, so they could pretty much do that if they wanted to.
Yeah, I wonder, are they putting like some kind of shell around it, or are they like?
I would almost have to assume that that's what it would be.
Are they using some kind of projector, or?
For a few
crazy
hours.
They're only doing it for one day.
It's only for a few hours.
Wow.
Huh. Using digital projections.
Ah, projections. There we go.
That's cool. Well, that explains. So there is no like teardown. Like you don't have to clean it up at all. You just gotta flip the switch and turn the shit off.
Switch.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. I can't wait to see some pictures of how that looks and stuff. I'm sure it's going to be super cool. I mean, it's Disney; they basically own the world. I mean, I can't imagine that won't be something that's really cool. Speaking of Rogue One, was a nice segue into the next topic. Rogue One pre-sale tickets on Fandango basically broke the internet. The site crashed multiple times from a record amount of traffic, and sold hundreds of thousands of tickets within just the first few minutes.
Wow.
So they're expecting this to pretty much smash all records again. Here comes Star Wars again.
Like, I mean,
they're just setting the bar every year. That's what they're going to do. But I have to wonder again, and I know I've said this before, I have to wonder, at what point does that lucky streak run out? At what point does the general public stop craving more Star Wars to this degree? I have to believe if they release a Star Wars film every year after year after year, they're not going to crash Fandango's website for pre-sale tickets every year. It's not going to continuously happen.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think it's going to carry on for a while, though, because the question is basically when will people get tired of Star Wars? But this isn't the. I mean, look at the Marvel franchise. Are people getting tired of the Marvel franchise? That doesn't seem to be really slowing down. You could argue that it's sort of got, like the novelty has worn off at this point, but it's still going fairly strong. DC's can probably stay going strong as long as they keep up with the quality, and so really it comes down to two things: how are they going to continue to be good, and when will people get tired of them? And the thing is, Star Wars is not a new franchise. Star Wars has been around since 1977, and people have been still craving more and more of it for 40 years.
It sold 90% of what The Force Awakens did on day one of pre-sales. So still, they're projecting it, they're tracking it to 130 million plus opening. But it could obviously
surprises me.
Yeah, considering Force Awakens did 248 million opening.
Well, what's crazy is like, I would expect everybody. Well, okay, I would expect it to do probably as well, close to as well. But
I bet it'll hit 200.
The thing that gets me is I'm confused because who are the people that are going to see this that didn't go see Force Awakens, though? Like, I'm not saying that this movie shouldn't be popular. Like, I would expect it to be, as popular as Force Awakens.
Kids.
But more popular? Like, who says, nah, I'm going to skip episode 7, but sure, I'll go see Rogue One.
It's kids that were not into Star Wars, that their friends maybe went with their fathers or their mothers or something.
Okay, yeah, okay, then, sure, I'll buy that.
Like the younger generation for sure. Our generation, ain't nobody skipping episode 7 to see Rogue One.
The ones who maybe weren't into Star Wars yet, and then once Force Awakens came out, and kind of created a new generation of Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, I'm in. Let's go see the next one.
On the flip side of that same coin, I think this movie is going to be more nostalgic than Force Awakens was. Albeit, there were some nostalgic moments in Force Awakens, sure. When you got to see Han Solo, Chewbacca, when you got to see Luke, Leia, all those characters. But this, they're almost taking scenes straight out of A New Hope. And like recreating the set. And I mean, it's going to fit right in. So I really think that I mean, I think that this movie's almost going to be more nostalgic in the fact that it's going to tie right in with that inaugural Star Wars movie that got us all hooked.
Yeah, but stylistically, it's very different. I think this movie is the first one with the potential to not feel like Star Wars.
No, that was
Just
already
because,
done by episode one.
well, okay,
Well,
yeah,
fair
I
enough.
guess I'm kind of, I don't know. Even, I mean, we're not young anymore, but like when that one came out, I still feel like that movie was still somewhat part of my childhood,
Oh,
even
for
though I
sure.
was an adult in high school. Well, that was my senior year of high school. When that came out. Um, so I don't know, but there hadn't been the giant reigniting of all things Star Wars for me quite yet. Like I had seen the original movies. I loved them. And I was excited when when the Phantom Menace came out. Um, but again, because of the whole internet thing, it was more like I wasn't waiting for it. Like I was when it came out, I was like, oh, cool, there's new Star Wars. But I wasn't like constantly checking in to see like
Yeah,
what new Star Wars can I consume, and so like I don't know when that point came, but uh, not stylistically, but at least for me personally, I somewhat tie that into Star Wars history.
hmm,
Like that. I kind of lump the prequels together with the original movies in terms of what has come before. Not that I'm lumping them in terms of quality or anything like that, but to me, when I talk about stuff now, like those are all kind of like the past movies, and now this is like the
yeah.
going
It's like
forward
a
stuff.
different generation. It feels like there's a big generational gap between the first six and then where we're at now. And I think part of it is to the mass marketing, the TV shows, the fact that you see this stuff
Yeah.
everywhere, and they're marketing it to a new generation. They're marketing it to the young kids now to develop lifelong fans in them because they know they've already got all of us hooked. Everybody that's our age or older is already hooked. Now they need to appeal to the younger kids.
And this could have seemed like blasphemy years ago, but as much as you'd like to distance the prequels from the originals, looking at it now, when you try and categorize the prequels, they fit much more in a category with the original movies than they do with anything that has come since. When you look at the conditions under which they were made, the 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 strategy of Star Wars, the business plan of like how is this franchise going to go, and in terms of containers that you, the viewing audience, put them into, they fit more with the old stuff than with the new. Like the first six movies, were kind of George Lucas's vision before the franchise got, super huge and kind of started spinning into other realms. I mean, you did have the expanded universe books that had started, 8 years or so before Phantom Menace came out. Um, but when you start looking at things that are happening now and the way that Star Wars is marketed and everything, like the prequels are really more part of old Star Wars
Sure, sure.
than the newer generation.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's interesting. I can't wait to see the movie for sure, but I also can't wait to see what it does numbers wise. Definitely, my wife and I are both looking forward to going to see this one. Um,
I don't see people getting, to go back to your original question. I don't see people getting tired of Star Wars anytime soon. I mean, because it really comes down to, you know, either it gets old for people or the quality starts to deteriorate. And I don't think it's going to get old for people anytime soon because Star Wars has been a thing in culture, in pop culture for 40 years.
I think
And
I think the most likely way that people that it loses popularity. I'm not going to say people get tired of it, but it loses popularity is the oversaturation of the market with things in this genre of nerd culture. So, obviously we've talked about the fact that you have a limited amount of time to see or do things. So at some point there may be enough other acceptable alternatives to Star Wars that people are equally as interested in. Some people are equally as interested in, that would detract from some of the attention that Star Wars gets. To some degree, I think that the new Star Trek movies could do that. I don't think they're there yet, but I think that they're on the right track compared to the old Star Trek movies. It's more of an action film than it is a drama like it used to be. I don't know.
Movies, though, movies, when you talk about, how many things can you actually consume, you have a limited amount of time. When it comes to movies, I don't know that they factor into that as much, because they're not a huge time commitment. They're a big deal. There's tons made into marketing and tie-ins and this and that. But when it comes down to it, the movie is like an hour and a half, 2 hour ordeal that is kind of over and done with in a very short amount of time compared to the amount of time.
Well, it could be a money factor too.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, but I don't see something like Star Trek being able to oust Star Wars in any meaningful way. I mean, I think that they can coexist, and I don't think that Star Trek is there's not enough of it right now to be.
I agree with that.
Practically, to consume any meaningful amount of time. Whereas Star Wars is almost like a freaking way of life at this point. Like, there's so much Star Wars, and so far, nobody's getting sick of it, and it's because it's something with the staying power to be around 40 years, and people still want more. I don't think we're going to reach that saturation point soon, because clearly it's been shown that the public just eats this shit up as much of it as it comes out.
Yeah.
I think the big crux of it is going to be when excuse me, this new trilogy ends. What comes after?
Yeah, that's a big question.
You have episode 7, and it's continuing on the story of the original cast, and Luke's training, the inheritance of the Jedi Order, and all this stuff, and the fallout of Han and Leia's child, and so this still has relevance to the original storyline, and so everybody's gonna watch episode 7. Episode 8 is going to continue that on. Everybody's going to watch it. Episode 9, everybody's going to watch that for the big finale and the conclusion of that trilogy. And the movies that come out in between, Rogue One, we're still in the thick of it, let's go see it. The young Han Solo, we're going to watch that. Whatever comes next, whether it be a Boba Fett or a Yoda movie, people are probably going to want to see that. But what comes after that? What's the long-term plan from that point forward? Do you start another trilogy of sorts? Is it the story after that? Is it a side story? Do you keep doing one-shot movies? So right now there's a plan, and you've got everybody on the hook because there's a destination. There's these little detours along the way, but there's a trilogy that's currently underway that just started, and there's an end to the story, and everybody wants to get to that point. What comes after is going to be the important part, I think. So I think everybody's at least on the hook until episode 9. So we've got another,
couple years.
What, 5 years of this?
Yeah.
3 to 4, something like that, years where people are still going to be all in for everything Star Wars. And then the big thing is going to be, what's the announcement of what comes next?
Yeah, it should be interesting to see the direction that they take it. I think you're right. That's really what's going to make or break. I'm not going to say break, but make or not continue the Star Wars legacy. but I mean, only time can tell at this point. Obviously, we're pretty far away from that. Seeing what direction they're going to take it. Another bit of news. Apparently, the upcoming Spider-Man Homecoming movie, we've got some information about the new Spider-Man suit, which will have wings, apparently. How do you feel about this, Topher?
I'm not crazy about it. It just so they're to clarify, it's like a kind of like a squirrel suit, like a hang gliding thing where like it's basically like a webbed wing, like from the forearm down to the side kind of deal. Like a base jumper suit, not like giant wings or anything like that. And as people have pointed out to me, as Brian was trying to show me old pictures of old Steve Ditko drawings from back in the day, like Spider-Man's costume used to look like that for a while. But to me, that's not the iconic Spider-Man. When you think of Spider-Man and how he moves, the portrayal of him is, the web slinging and the just web slinging everywhere. Like it, at no point does he spread his arms and just glide to his destination. Like it's weird. It's slightly off about common perception of the character. And
the first appearance of Spider-Man did have wings. I have it up on my wall here.
It just seems to me like something they don't need to do. It seems like a distraction. It doesn't seem like it would add to the movie. It seems like it would be a distraction from the character, and I guess that's I don't necessarily think no, it's wrong, it's horrible, this is blasphemy. Like it's not like a perversion of the character in any sort of way, but to me, like it's different than most people's perception of the character and how they know him conceptually, and I think it will be more of a distraction than anything else, and I'm not sure how it adds to the character. Like if it were something about him, about his past, about who he is personality wise, then that could be a story point, and that could be something that that adds to it and defines who he is. But what he wears is not who he is, and like little things about the costume and just how he moves seem like there's no way they can add to the story.
Would you say that this would
like
be
a questionable,
almost a gimmick to be able to add certain styles of camera shots throughout the film to get certain style of footage? To me that's you talk about like how he moves and things like that. The only reason in my head that I could come up with why they would just add this would be simply for that footage, which I would almost bet, if I'm right and this is a gimmick, that we will see some of that footage of him gliding, similar to the shit you see on YouTube where they're in the squirrel suits and they're gliding super close to the ground, or for him in this case right between buildings or something crazy like that. I think that's what we're going to see in a trailer, in like a teaser trailer coming soon. I have a feeling that's exactly why they're doing it.
I don't know. I mean, because we've had some discussions lately about what constitutes a gimmick, because it's been one of your favorite words in the past, or at least I like to claim that it's been one of your favorite words because I point it out every time you use it. But I don't know about this one, like, because a gimmick to me is something that you do in order to
drum up interest.
Yeah, to drum up interest, to a device that adds nothing story wise, but is a cheap way to get viewership, kind of thing.
And that's exactly what this sounds like to me.
Well, see, but what are they trying to how are they using this to their benefit?
Like you said, this isn't going to add any story value per se.
Right, but how does it add viewership though? Like I still think it's
because they'll be able to make some kind of sweet footage for the trailer. That's what I'm saying that they're going to do is they're going to be able to have a badass trailer that has nothing to do with revealing storylines, but it's going to have some really really nice action shot type footage that they'll probably just film with like a GoPro using somebody that's wearing a squirrel suit. They'll get some realistic looking footage, and that'll be how they garner in. Like, wow, look how intense this movie is going to be. Look how action packed.
So you're saying people can't actually web sling, but people can do the whole squirrel suit paragliding, thing. So we can do some kind of perspective shots.
So we can do like a first person perspective
and make it look more realistic
because it's real footage versus CGI.
It's movement that people can actually do versus the web slinging. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But it does seem to me, it just seems like a questionable choice. Like why? What's the point? Does this add something? Because it clearly, I don't think there's going to be some deep character reason why, like my father was a base jumper and he wore a squirrel suit and I'm doing this to honor him. I don't see that happening. There's going to be no story reason for it. So it just, I don't know. It seems like a departure for the character that doesn't need to happen, that adds no story value, and it just seems like a questionable decision. Like, everything is a gamble when you do character design for a movie of this proportion, with the stakes this high, with all this, like the Sony Marvel deal riding on how well this does, and trying to redeem the character in the eyes of the fans, and you have years and years and decades of character history, audience buy-in to your design of this character. It just seems to me like what's the payoff of this? There has to be a return on an investment of risk of that sort. What are you getting out of it by changing something? So either they're getting something out of this, or it's just a dumb design decision. So, what is it that they get out of this? And to your point, maybe it is that. Maybe it's a real world application of the way he moves, so that it makes filming easier or more realistic or something. Maybe that's it, because you'd think there's got to be a reason for it. Because
I would hope there's a reason for it.
If you're gonna do something that fucks with the public's perception of a character, and is going to distract them from the story of your movie by changing little nonsensical details about, how the character moves, is something as silly as that, then you better be getting some payoff for it.
So is this movie? And I know we've talked about this, and I should know this, but is this movie a Fox movie? Is it a Marvel movie? Is it a joint collaboration movie?
Well, Spider-Man was Sony, not Fox.
Sony, yeah, I'm sorry.
Right. So it's like a joint thing. Basically, after Amazing Spider-Man 2 kind of tanked, or at least did not live up to expectations, Sony was looking at doing a reboot already. They canceled the plans for their sequels, and they said, okay, we have to reevaluate the strategy. And discussion started with Marvel over, okay, how do we use this character? And they kind of made a deal where Marvel said, okay, give us the character back of sorts. Let us use the character. We'll handle the creative direction of the character. We will include Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we will handle all the movie production stuff and all the the plot. But Sony will basically,
make them
handle production. They will produce the film, and they will still get their share of the profits. But basically like you're kind of killing. Marvel said you're killing the character. It will be more beneficial for us both if you let us take over and do this. So tell you what, let us make the movies, and like come to a deal here. So yeah, it's kind of a joint thing. Marvel handled all the creative direction of everything, and they kind of brought, they have creative control over everything story wise, and I think maybe even casting decisions. But Sony still owns the rights, so they get their share of the proceeds that they normally would have gotten if they made the movie themselves. But there might be a monetary deal there,
Yeah, I'm
where
sure there is.
where Marvel gets a little bit more of it than they otherwise would have, simply because they're. So I mean, basically, Marvel's making the movies, but Sony's paying for it, and so Sony still has the rights. But
we get a good movie. Hopefully.
They kind of contracted the actual making of it out to Marvel because they weren't going to fuck it up.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that one, how that one turns out. This could be like the first like great Spider-Man movie that we get. Like, I mean, some of the old ones weren't bad, but some of them were really bad. Some of them were really bad.
Some of them were not great. But I mean, the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie,
I like that one.
Oh my god, dude! That made me so happy.
I think part of it was for the time when that one came out, and I think that's a big part of this conversation that a lot of people forget, that you can't forget, is you can't judge older films against newer ones a lot of times. Point for point, you have to take the film in the context of what else was going on in the world, what was available technology-wise, all those things. The Hulk movie with Edward Norton in it. Mm-hmm. Not that bad of a movie, realistically, for when it came out. Not the best either, and by no stretch of the imagination is the Hulk in that as good as it is now in the Avengers movies, but you couldn't do, technology wouldn't allow you to do the Hulk like he has done now then.
There are some movies that have incredible staying power, and some of them hold up better than others. But yeah, like you said, if you're gonna rank like the best superhero movies, you can't just watch them all from scratch for the first time right now and compare them, side by side on an equal footing.
It's just not fair.
You kind of have to have seen it when it came out to really be able to rank how
much power it had then.
Yeah, to where it fits its place in history.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to like the original Batman movie with Michael Keaton. That was huge.
Yeah,
it was massive. Nowhere near the best Batman film compared to the others, but in the rankings, I would put it pretty high up there in terms of superhero movies.
It's like if you're going to rank the greatest baseball players of all time, like Babe Ruth is in that discussion, but you put him in a game today,
it's going to get smoked.
Yeah,
dude's going to get smoked.
The dude's going to be the worst player on the field.
That's a good point. That's a very good analogy. On that note, we're about out of time for this week's episode. I'm Fox 2. We got Topher.
And only Topher.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.